Anybody not get one that wants one? Okay. Well, for those of you who are new to this class and maybe a one-time attendee only, Ecclesiastes is where we are. And Ecclesiastes means preacher, at least as best we can decipher from the translation to translation to translation. So when we talk about the preacher, we're talking about the guy that wrote this thing that we have figured is Solomon, not only because the Jews said it was Solomon that wrote it, and they believed it was Solomon that wrote it all those years, but also the internal evidence seems to point to the fact that it is Solomon. And Solomon initiated a study that we touched on in chapters 1 and 2, where he's seeking out the meaning of life. What am I here for? What is life all about? What am I supposed to be accomplishing? And he dedicated himself to trying several different avenues. He tried happiness and entertainment. Every way that he could think of, that didn't solve anything. He tried wealth, accumulating money. And of course, Solomon, we know, was just filthy rich. He also decided that he would build things and he would accumulate things. But none of this really mattered. And even being king and having power over his nation and power over other countries that they conquered, that didn't prove to be satisfying either. Nothing, it seemed, would do. And then, right toward the end of chapter 2, he decides to throw God into the mix, and lo and behold, the lights start coming on. So from here through about chapter 10, he is going to re-examine the things that he talked about in chapters 1 and 2 on a more detailed level, but with God in the mix to show how things really can be. 3 essential insights that characterize his new approach. The first is that the world cannot satisfy you. It will not satisfy you. So if you're seeking a desire for meaning and worth, pursuing that is a dead end. Don't do it. Forget seeking it through the world. It won't work. The second thing is we have to learn to view things from God's point of view. He made it all. Therefore, he is the expert. We should look to him for guidance when it comes to the meaning of life and its purpose. And then 3, life does have a point. We're not searching in a dark room for a black cat that's not there. God has given us a roadmap, and he expects us to use it. So the real question is not whether or not life has a purpose, but whether or not we have found it yet. The central point of this passage, that in chapter 3, is because we are told to enjoy life, chapter 2, verse 24, we must accept, appreciate, and enjoy all of life's ups and downs. And as you know, that's hard. Generally not on the upside, but certainly on the downside. But life is not all about amusement. It is not all about acquiring things. It is not about exercising power over people. The preacher sought all that, as we said. Life includes gains and losses. It's things we do. It's things that are done to us. It is things that are opposites. And we need to find God's perspective and meaning in life by looking at all of those. So chapter 3, he starts out by saying, there is appointed a time for everything, and there is a time for every event or every purpose under heaven. You ever think about that? That everything that happens in your life, it's an appointed kind of thing. It's there for a reason. As John was talking earlier, sometimes it is to test your faith. And when you get through that test, your faith is stronger. Sometimes it is there for you to exercise your knowledge and your wisdom In all cases, you will grow as a result. So everything that is ethically neutral, it is neither good nor bad. Everything that is ethically neutral has a time and a place in our lives, and we will experience all of them at one point or another. But evil is still evil. It will never be good. Good is still good. It will never be evil. So don't get the two confused. We're talking things that are neither good nor evil. They're neutral. Those things will be in your life in abundance. And oftentimes, they are opposites. And so, he then jumps into talking about these opposites that will be in your life. They will come. Like it or not, they're going to come. We need to get to the point where we embrace it, we accept it, and we like it. First thing, when I put my lesson together, the last thing I do is pull everything out of it except the questions, and then I print one to copy here, and then I print one and leave it by Peggy's Bible at the breakfast table. First thing she says to me this morning, what version is that? That's a New American Standard. She said, it's a wrong version. I said, what do you mean it's the wrong version? It's got different words. I know that. And the NIV has different words. And the New King James has different words. American Standard has different words. The Old King James has different words. They're all different. But they mean the same thing. Well, you should have the same one I have. Okay. If you say so. I said, excuse me? Yeah. I never memorized them. I did though get really good at, you remember the song Turn, Turn, Turn? Yeah, it was released like in 1965 by the Byrds, Byrds, written by Peter Seeger. I had that song down pretty good for a long time. I liked it. But plagiarism? But he used different words too, saying the same thing. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. Which is verse 1. And then you get into, there's a time to give birth and a time to die. There's a time to plant and a time to uproot what has been planted. And that uproot could be harvest, or it may be pulling up non-productive plants. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, a time to dance. A time to throw stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to shun embracing. A time to search and a time to give up as lost. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear apart and a time to sew together. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. A lot of us have experienced all of these at one time or another already. Some of you may not have, but look out, it's coming. You know, one of the verses that always kind of made me wonder is when God says that the death of his saints is a good thing. And I always wrestle with that. But it's right here. It's going to come. Death and birth, they're going to come. We'll add babies and we'll lose relatives. And we make friends, we lose friends. It's going to happen. It's going to come. God has ordered life and arranged it for times for living things, like being born and a time to die. Each is good in its own time. A farmer must plant at certain times and he must harvest at certain times. If you try to plant when you should be harvesting, if you try to harvest when you should be planting, it does not work. That's not the appointed time. God has an appointed time in this hemisphere that things will be planted and things will be harvested and things will be uprooted. If you try to do it out of that order, it does not work. Both actions, though they're opposite, are needed, and each is appropriate when the time comes. Appropriate times exist for killing and healing as well, for tearing down and building up. Done at the wrong time, it's a tragedy. Done at the right time, it's a blessing. A time to kill could be taking the life of an animal or the life of a human. Take an animal for food, Genesis 9:3. Human capital punishment was authorized way back there in Genesis 9, verses 5 and 6. If you take the life of a human, your life shall be taken. And then it was incorporated into the law, Deuteronomy 13:9. Self-defense was approved. You could kill with self-defense, Exodus 22:2. Killing during war was approved, Deuteronomy 20:16 through 18, 1 Samuel 15:3. The New Testament authorizes governments the power over wicked people and their lives, Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 5. In the same way, various responses are appropriate depending on the situations and not at other times. The same person may weep, laugh, mourn, or dance, and all of those are appropriate given the circumstances. Given other circumstances, they are inappropriate and should be avoided. When a farmer is clearing a field, it's appropriate to gather stones together. Apparently, in the Jewish realm over there was a saying that God gave stones to an angel and told him to disperse these stones around the world, but he tripped in Palestine. So there are stones everywhere in Palestine, hence the gathering of stones is a massive project. And certainly you want the stones out of your field, because if you don't, you're going to tear up your plow. You might even hurt your animal that's pulling the plow. So you gather those stones together and get them out. If you're building a stone fence or you're building a house, it is necessary to gather stones together to make that wall or to make the barrier that is near there. Giving a big hug to a returning loved one is the right thing to do, but if you're a military in uniform, it is frowned on to give a hug or kiss or any other of that kind of stuff. So there are appropriate times. It's a blessing to welcome a child into a family. It is also a blessing when that child grows up and moves out. Right? You gain and you lose. Both are appropriate given the situation. On a more mundane level, you gather tax records. You keep them now for 7 years? It used to be 10. I think before that it was like forever. But 10, now I think it's just 7. But at the end of that time, what do? Well, you get rid of them. You don't want them taking up space. You need to get rid of them. Same way, about this time of year, folks start going through their closet too, right? It's time to unload stuff. Get rid of it. You don't need it anymore. Clogging things up. This getting and losing could also refer to searching for something for a given period of time, and at the end of that time, you quit looking. So it is maybe losing something, or it is stop looking for something. Sometimes cutting up a fabric is needed. Other times sewing is required. Matter of fact, Mom used to make quilts, and the first action was to start cutting up fabric, making squares. Then you start sewing them together to make bigger squares, and then you get the big frame in the living room. You lower it down, and you start tacking it all together. Cutting and sewing were both required. It could also refer to the Jewish practice of mourning or repentance. in which they tore their clothing because of sorrow or because of regret. And then at an appropriate time, they start sewing the clothes back together again to repair. Now, I threw a couple of verses in there for you on that one, 2 Samuel 13:31, Ezra 9:5. And God expects us to sorrow, but during our bereavement, we don't sorrow like the world sorrows, because we have hope. We know there's something better around the corner. 1 Thessalonians 4:13-18. And in a choice that requires great wisdom, sometimes it is good to speak, and at other times it is good to not speak. More times than not, we get in less trouble by not speaking than we do in speaking, but both are appropriate given the situation. We should love God, love others, love what is good, and at the same time, we must hate evil and any loyalty that would pull us away from our allegiance to Christ. Christians ought to hate things such as the evil individuals do, 2 Chronicles 19:2, evil ways, Psalm 97:10, things that the Lord hates, Proverbs 6:16-19 and Malachi 2:16, and deeds of those rejected by God, Revelation 2:6-15. Specifically there, he calls out the Nicolaitans, but I don't know who they are. But I do know their deeds were apparently not accepted by God. And the church that he was writing to was commended for having also hated those deeds. In certain situations, we must make war, and at other times, we must stand for peace. So this is a memorable list. But you need to know the world does not define what is good and what is evil. God makes that determination. These things are neutral things. Situation determines how they affect you and how you respond. A scoffer might see this list and say it's inconsistent, these are not truly opposites, or this doesn't fit with that. But you know what? The Spirit of God told Solomon, this is what I want. This is what we need to compare and to accept, because this is what we're going to experience. And you're not going to find life in merriment. You're not going to find it in gaining wisdom. That was another he tried. You're not going to find it in acquiring things. The meaning of life is found in serving God. And serving God will challenge you through the heights and the depths of everything that happens to you in your life, just as this list of things points out. Because some of you probably were shaking your head as you went through that list, not saying, well, this is not the right translation, but saying, I don't see that. I don't agree with that. But we don't get to make that choice. God's already done that. The good thing, though, is Paul reassures us in Romans chapter 8:28, we know that God causes all things to work together for good for those who love God, those who are called according to his purpose. And sometimes it's hard to see when you're at the bottom of one of those wells how there's good in it. And that's the way it is with a lot of our life. But 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 10 years down the road, you look back and you say, now I see. Now I understand. But no, he is going to cause all things to work together for your good. So what does it profit a worker for his labors? Solomon asked this question back in chapter 1, verse 3. And as you know, then he went on his little experimental kind of thing. Now he's asking this question again here in verse 9. Is the labor really worth it? In light of the new evidence, Solomon concludes, yes, it is. It is worth it. There is profit. Profit, as I defined the word before, is there's something left over. It's not vanity. That's nothing. It's not futility. That's nothing. Instead, it's profit. There's something gained here. There's something that you get out of this. It's profit. The preacher asks, what is worth this labor? And the answer is that we are serving the Lord, and whatever might be his profession, whether you're digging a ditch or you're building a skyscraper, whatever it is that you do, you're doing it for the Lord. And Paul says that too in Colossians chapter 3, verse 23, whatever you do, do your work heartily, as for the Lord, rather than men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of an inheritance. It is the Lord Christ whom you serve. Most of the time when we're on the job, especially if it's one of those jobs that you do not... I got the privilege when I was in basic training, actually it was after basic and before I got to tech school, you're in a casual status. And in casual status means you don't really have a job. But they find things for you to do. And if you're going to be there for a while, you get a permanent detail, like it's there until you ship out to your training. If it's not, then you just get a daily assignment. And of course, the first couple of times, it is a daily assignment. You go in there and they draw like a number out of a hat. Say, here's your job today. I had the privilege of serving on a garbage truck. Let me tell you, I did not think I was serving the Lord that day. That is not fun. And I've always been one of those who I can look at anything, I can see anything, that's fine. But when a smell hits me, it's not fine. It's not good. My stomach just does, somersaults and all kinds of bad things. That day, it was rough. It was rough. Whatever we're doing, whether it's riding on a garbage truck or it's working in a nice, clean, beautifully smelling office building, you're working for the Lord. And you got to remember that. It helps it. God has an attribute that he has attached to everything. He says everything is appropriate. That's the New American Standard Version, but every other version out there says is beautiful. And it literally, the New American Standard even has literally beautiful. God has made everything appropriate or made it beautiful in its time. So a labor's honest toil that we just talked about, as well as all these activities that are in this list, they're appropriate, they are beautiful in their time. Planting and reaping, weeping and laughing, cutting and sowing, all the other things are beautiful in their time. And one of these days, we can see the beautiful in those moments. That's when we're starting to see it like God. I know I've said this before, but we are the only animal on this planet that recognizes God. And the reason is because we are the only animal on this planet that God has put it into our hearts. He has built into us the idea of eternity. He has built into us the idea of God. That's why every civilization across the entire globe, all the time, has a look for deity and a recognition that God is there. Most have a view of eternity. God has put eternity in our heart. You won't find it in any of the work you do. And not only that, he says here, you're not really going to understand what God has done from the beginning until now. You'll get close. You'll get better all the time when you study him and when you try to follow him and you try to learn more about him. You'll come to know it better. You're never really going to understand it because you're not eternal like he is yet. But we will be. We certainly will be. So, what should our attitude toward our life be? Solomon says, rejoice, do good, enjoy life. We can do no higher good than what the Lord wants us to do. It is a gift from God to have life. It is a gift from God to have food. It is a gift from God to have a drink. It is a gift from God to have work. And so he says, rejoice in all of those. Rejoice in all of those because they are a gift from God, starting with life and working your way down. It is all a gift from God. And so, those who eat and drink and work, we need to see the good in it because it is a gift from God. If you remember back in chapter 2, verse 17, Solomon said, I hate my life. Actually, he said, I hated life. However, now his perspective has changed because that was said without God in the equation. Now he has God in the equation, and he says life is good, including our work, and it is to be enjoyed. Chapter 3, verses 12 and 13. Also, chapter 5, verse 20. He says life was given by God. Chapter 5, verse 18. Life is full of pleasure from God. Chapter 9, verse 9. Everything in life, including life itself, is a gift from God. It should be received with gratitude. 1 Timothy 4, 3. And as James says, know that every good thing that is given and every perfect gift is from above. James 1, 17. The mystery of life's purpose is not hidden away. It's not inaccessible except to only those who are enlightened. It is right in front of us, and we can see it and enjoy it if we just take the time. Deuteronomy puts it this way in chapter 30, verse 11. For this commandment which I command you today is not too difficult. It's not too difficult for you, nor is it out of reach. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will go up into heaven for us and get it for us and make us hear it, that we may observe it. Nor is it beyond the sea that you should say, who will cross the sea for us to get it and for us and make us hear it, that we may observe it. But the word is very near you. It is in your mouth. It is in your heart that you may observe it. And when we read our Bibles, that is where it goes, into our heart, that we may observe it. You know, when you look at the things that God has done, it really should awe us. Romans chapter 1, he says all of these things that God has done is just, it's intuitively obvious. You cannot help but see it. You cannot help but know that this is massively, massively impossible to do. Only God could do it. Even look at your body. Our bodies are so fragile, it is pathetic. Living is a miracle. I don't care what anybody says. It's a miracle. Because everything has to happen just right. Blood cells go through parts of your body, one cell at a time, to oxygenate and to gather carbon dioxide, to pass food, to get waste, and flows through a filter system like the liver or the kidneys, through the oxygen exchange in your lungs. And it's all driven by an electrical system that befuddles experts. Life is tenuous. It's a miracle. And we should know it. In verse 14, he says, I know everything God does will remain forever. Forever, as I told you before, that is an indefinitely long period of time determined by God. There is nothing to add to it. There is nothing to take away from it. God has done everything so that there is nothing you need to add to it to make it better. There's no excess that you could take away from it that would make it better. We can't fix it. God has already done that. It's right the way He did it. There's nothing we can add to it. There is nothing we can take away from it. And not only that, it is done for a purpose. For God has so worked it that men should fear Him. And that fear means be scared of. You remember when Moses was at the mountain, Mount Sinai, he called the people there, and a cloud had descended on the mountain, and there was lightning, there was thunder, the mountain was shaking, and the people were scared. And God tells Moses, this is why they're here. I want them to see this. I want them to hear this because they need to be scared. You need to fear me so you will obey me. Most of us, when we first turned loose of the pew, as John said, and made that trek down the aisle, or when we met with the preacher after hours, or met with a friend in the middle of the night or the middle of the afternoon, came to God because we were scared. Absolutely scared. Now, we know John says what? Perfect love casts out fear. So there's a point as we grow in God that the fear is replaced by love. But what are you doing? You're still obeying Him. You're still obeying Him. Some will try to look at this fear and they say, oh, that's respect. Well, then perfect love is casting out respect? That doesn't make good sense. Perfect love is casting out fear. And we're going to stop right here because I know that was the second bell. I only thought I heard the first bell. But I think since you laid on it the second time, it must have been the second bell. If you would, please, let's stop here with a word of prayer. Kind and loving Heavenly Father, we do thank you so much that all of your creation just absolutely amazes us and puts us in a sense of awe. And we do fear your wrath. But we are so glad that you sent your Son so that we can grow to love you more and more each and every day. Help our love to push all the fear away. Help us to be obedient to you. Help us to serve you better each and every day. Please be with us this day and bless us, Father. Bless this congregation. Bless each member here. Help us to grow spiritually in this new year. Help us to grow numerically as we reach out to others. And all of these things we ask through your Son. Amen. Thank y'all very much. We'll pick up again next week.